had a student who was nearsighted and I think she was like a -2 or something. It wasn't like super high level, but it was enough to affect her life. She had worn glasses all her life since she was 7 years old, I think, or second grade or something like that. And that was probably 7 years old, yeah. And so she did my program. She was in her 60s when she did my program, and she wore progressive glasses at that point. And she hasn't been wearing glasses ever since she did the program. So she was able to first stop wearing glasses for any near vision tasks, and then eventually also for far vision. And she doesn't need them for driving anymore. And for driving, you need to get a clean driver's license. You need to pass the test. So that's an example. She's also very holistically oriented. We didn't talk about earlier, but sleep, good nutrition, all these things make a difference, especially when you get older.
Do you find yourself with worsening vision year after year? Do you struggle with blurry vision, astigmatism, or light sensitivity? Today's guest, Claudia Muehlenweg, is an amazing holistic vision coach who has helped thousands of clients ditch their contacts and glasses using her clear vision method based on neuroscience. I am Dr. Andrew Wong, co-founder of Capital Integrative Health. This is a podcast that is dedicated to transforming the consciousness around what it means to be healthy and understanding the root causes of both disease and wellness. This is an enlightening conversation in which Claudia shares how she improved her own vision using the Bates method and gives many insightful tips on how you can as well. If you want better vision and want a clear plan about how to get your vision back in focus, don't miss this episode. So welcome, Claudia, to the podcast today. So glad to have you, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
And let's talk first about what inspired you to become a holistic vision coach.
Well, you might guess that I had problems with my eyesight. In fact, I got my first pair of glasses at the tender age of 3 years old. I was farsighted. For those of you that don't know that, I couldn't see the near point well. So I basically had to wear them all the time. And I also had fusion problems. My right eye was going in. It's called a convergent squint. And the glasses really made me miserable because I was teased and bullied in school, and no kids like to wear glasses. And I'm a little older, I'm in my 60s. So when I was little, no other kid wore glasses. There was one kid, he was like the professor, the smart one. And I really wasn't the smart. I had to study a lot. And long story short, I was really determined. Once I got a little older into my teenage years, I was determined to get rid of them because they really, I was teased, bullied, and I did get rid of them. And I can share more later what I did. I discovered this method, the Bates method, and I got myself out of glasses, and my life changed in amazing ways. Then in my 30s, I was in a really stressful marriage, ended in divorce, became a single mom. I was back in glasses. And then I was I just turned 40, and I thought okay, well, now you're in your 40s, there's nothing you can do. And I had this one epiphany, this one moment that really changed my trajectory to become a vision teacher. It was I remember having my glasses on. I got home from a party. I tried to have fun, meet new people. I was single now. And I got lost on the way home. I was super stressed. And I arrived in my driveway and I took my glasses off. And my vision was so bad, worse than before I put them on. So I thought that just doesn't feel right. And I found that book again that I had back in the day that I bought in the 70s, and found a teacher. And eventually took me a little bit longer that time, but I got rid of my glasses for the second time. And it really made me determined to spread the knowledge of this, because it makes such a difference in your life if you have the freedom to function without crutches, as I call them.
Yes, and we know that, well, there's a lot of good pearls in there, Claudia. I would say for our listeners too, we know that, there are definitely different roles, appropriate roles for eye doctors, for optometrists. I think what I've found is that when you go to an eye doctor, it's not like there's a clear path towards removing the glasses, like you just said. You've done that twice in your life. You've done that once in your teenage years and once in your 40s. So it sounds like there's some method that, essentially systematically you've been able to teach people as well. You've been able to experience it yourself, but then also teach people. So I think let's talk about the Bates method first. What is the Bates method, and was that what you used for both of your times that you've successfully removed the glasses, or?
Yeah, so Dr. William Bates was an ophthalmologist who was born in 1860 and he passed away in 1931. And so he he was a professor at Columbia University, and he was a researcher too. And he got interested, and when he noticed that some of his patients improved their eyesight, and he was like, hold on, like I didn't learn that in ophthalmology school. I thought it could just get worse. So he was the kind of person like, hold on, like that makes me interested. And then he began researching, and he did, he had I have a whole article about him on my website, but he basically discovered that, and he first thought you can only help myopia, which is nearsightedness. So he thought he realized there's a strain, there's an effort that people make when they look in the distance. And so he was helping his students at Columbia. He had a free clinic eventually. He worked with school children. He had a lot of experience. And eventually somebody said to him, because he had glasses, right? He was at that point in his 40s or something. They were like, well, if your method works, then it should also work for presbyopia, which is called the old age side, right? When you can't read small print. And he was like, wait, yeah. And so he had somebody help him. And he said it never took him again that long that it took himself to get rid of glasses. So the method is basically, when you overly simplify, but it's basically based on how vision is as effortless and easy as all the other senses. So coming to a point of relaxation versus strain and effort. And Bates was really big, which neuroscience confirmed, about the mental strain, about the mental focus. This is what I always say. You're absolutely right. Your eye doctors are super important, and we need eye doctors, but they really focus on this. For those of you listening, I'm showing an eyeball. They're really focusing on the eyeball. They don't look at your brain, your visual cortex, the whole system, your stress, your sleep, your emotions. They don't look at all of that, and all of that influences your vision. And so that's what Bates was about. He used a lot of the mental, it wasn't eye exercises. That's what everybody thinks. It wasn't like just eye exercises, rolling your eyes this way or that way. That's not what it is.
I love that point you just mentioned, and you were showing the eyeball on the video here for the listeners that are doing audio. The eyeball, we think about the eyeball and the cornea, retina, and different parts. But that eyeball is connected via the nervous system to the brain, right? So that the occipital cortex and everything. So I think that's a really good point, is looking at it more holistically, like what's that eye connected to, and you can influence, via some of the neural structures and neural pathways, the eye function, the vision. That's so simple yet so brilliant,
Exactly. And that's what you just said, the nervous system, right? Your listeners probably know the sympathetic, the fight or flight, and the parasympathetic, and I'm super oversimplifying everything yet. And, I always say stress is a good thing. We need stress. Otherwise we wouldn't have made it in this world. We need that. And even if we're speaking or if we're athletically performing, and stress is not a bad thing. The chronic stress, that elevated stress where we don't come down, that's what's bad. And that's what really influences your vision. And I'm sure your listeners maybe ask yourself, have you noticed that your vision fluctuates? Have you noticed that maybe sometimes in the day or with some task you see better and you see worse, or after a vacation you see better? Like, really notice that your vision varies for everyone, even those with perfect vision. When I'm stressed, when I'm sleep deprived, when I lead a summit and my computer dies in the middle of it, I'm in panic mode, right? My vision gets blurry at that moment because our nervous system puts us into that, deer in the headlight, fight or flight mode. So that's normal.
Yeah. How long does it typically take? I know that's what listeners may want to know, because there's at least right now we live in the age of like instant gratification, and we know that good things take time, and it doesn't sound like this is necessarily instant. But how long is it typically taking for people using a Bates method or using a holistic vision method to correct their eyesight, correct their vision issues?
That's like the one question I dislike the most, but I also know that everybody wants to know that. And it's you're probably not going to like the answer, but it depends. So I always say it really depends on your situation. How long have you had glasses? How old are you? What is the level of your so-called refractive error or your eye disease? And I always say improvements are seen in the first session, or when you first begin, you will see improvements. However, they might initially be temporary improvements. So so you have to the method really teaches you how to see with effortless and ease, what people do with perfect vision automatically. So you have to relearn to see. And sometimes it also takes, counseling, like if there's trauma, adverse childhood events, sometimes there's additional modalities that you need. So like I said, it's not just eye exercises. my students always said, oh, I thought it was just about eyesight improvement. And now I realize it's about my life vision, how I see myself, how I see the world, my insights, it's like this really big picture of everything, not just, again, the eyeball.
And spiritual, right? I think it was, I forget who, the eyes are the windows to the soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
That whole quote. It reminds me of functional medicine. I mean, this is very much a root cause type of perspective. And in functional medicine, as you probably know, it's personalized too. It's, how long has this person had this issue? What are the root causes? Are those causes easier or less easy to be reversed? And, there's many other things that probably affected the autonomic nervous system, nutrition, and things. What vision issues is Bates, or, the vision kind of method you teach your clients most helpful for?
I really say it's helpful for everything, really. I mean, that sounds, overly, confident, but it really is, because what I teach, like you talked about the nervous system, we talk about neuroscience, about anatomy of the eyes. So the Bates method is really based on using your eyes the way they're designed to be used, and also differentiate between your eyes and you're seeing, where the light hits the cornea, the lens, the retina, and then how that information gets transported at super fast speed to your little cortex, and where you actually see, where we perceive. And our vision is influenced by memories, by experiences, by, assumptions. I don't know if you guys remember that dress. Remember that a few years ago, we had that dress that was white, gold, and some people, it was blue and black, but some people saw it white gold because it was a pretty tight crop, and people were like, is this taken at night? Is it taken at daytime? Is it taken in shadow? Or maybe you've seen visual illusions, right? Where something is, and that's an example that the brain is just trying to make a guess what I'm seeing.
Let's take a deep dive into root causes now. Why do we have worsening vision? Is it getting worse over time? I feel like we're in the internet and now the Zoom age, we're always on screens, or a lot of us are on screens. What are your thoughts about why we have worsening vision?
So you're absolutely right. There is that, here's the thing, our eyes are totally fine at the near point, but we were not ever designed to look at for hours at something up close. When, and I love Huberman, I'm the Huberman professor of ophthalmology and neuroscience at Stanford. He has a great podcast, and he talked about how our system is designed to look up close for like about 3 minutes. That's how long we can mentally focus. And not just because internet and Instagram and all these things, but because I guess when you think about survival, we're doing near work, or maybe doing, and then at some point you have to look up, are there any like predators? Did my friends leave the camp and leave me behind? Like, you kind of have to check your surroundings. So it makes sense, but now we are glued to these screens for hours. And here's the thing too, bad habits like staring, not blinking. They did studies where they found that people looking at screens don't blink enough. And then also the other big topic is light. Studies found that children that play 2 or more hours outside every day have way lower rates of nearsightedness than those that are like, the bookworms, and they study and they like the books and often probably get rewarded for being such a good student, versus the tomboys that just cause trouble, right? If that makes sense,
If I look away from the screen periodically, I'm not looking away from you, I'm looking towards the environment to protect my vision. And then the other thing is going to be all the tablets that we have, the screens, the laptops, the cell phones. And I think what I've seen just in my own life, but also with patients, with friends, with family, is that these screens are becoming increasingly encroaching on our lives. Like everywhere we go, there's like a cell phone in the pocket, right? So how much screen time should we ideally have? I mean, maybe if it's realistic, if ideally.
I don't know if I could say what's realistic. I think it's important to use super good habits, like blinking again is one of those simple things. And also open your peripheral vision, because we are kind of drawn to these devices, and you want to have your environment be as bright as the screen. So when my daughters were teenagers, they would sit in a dark room with just the computer on, and that focus is even more strained on that central vision, and that peripheral field is kind of completely blacked out because there's nothing, that's one thing I would say. And then screens are hard on the eyes per se, because we look at each other now, but it's a fake 3D, right? I know there's a room behind you, but it's flat, but at the same time, again, it's confusing for the brain versus an actual printed book, for instance, or, that's a 3-dimensional thing where the brain knows this is like so and so many inches away from, there's like a sense of depth, that's much
I like real books much better than Kindle for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and I think newspapers, right? Newspapers are kind of struggling nowadays. A lot of times they're kind of doing print is still a thing, I think, for a lot of people. How about blue blocking glasses? Where are you on blue blocking glasses before we get to some of the other issues?
Great question. So, and you probably teach this too. I think blue light is super important for us, for our circadian rhythm. I think it's super important to get like bright light, blue light right into your eyes in the morning to be energized and not get that in the evening, like 3 hours before bedtime. So I am a big believer in natural light. However, screens have a lot of blue and green, but they don't have like the full spectrum like the beautiful natural light or sunlight has. So I use blue blocking software on my screens. And I have that on pretty much all day. And, if you have Apple devices, and we're not promoting a brand here, but it's called night shift mode, and I have it on all day. And you can decide how orange or how yellow you want it, so that I don't get the extra blue light from the screens, but I still get the natural light, to help me energize. So I use blue blockers, only blue blocking glasses, and they can be amber colored, or they can be, I have a brand that I use that doesn't have much of a tint. I use that for TV in the evening because my TV is like an older monitor and there's no, way to stop the blue light. So that's what the only time I use the actual glasses.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I'm going to put on my glasses here. I have this handily ready for me. So what I did was I about 5 or 6 years ago, I stopped wearing contacts regularly. And I went to my eye doctor, and every year my vision has improved slightly, although I want to definitely chat more with you because I think I'm starting to get presbyopia. But I've noticed that, and I asked them, I said, why are my eyes getting better? And is it because, I used to wear contacts, and that's limiting that oxygen supply to the eye. Where are you on like contacts versus, I know some people have to wear them, but where are you on contacts versus glasses? And also, is it possible to limit the glasses? If you limit the glasses, is that going to help your vision by not wearing the glasses if it's safe?
So absolutely, and that's a big part of my method, that we get out into weaker glasses. So one thing I want to say at the very beginning, and we talked about that before we began the recording, diopters correct you only for a certain distance. It's a measurement related to distance. So when you are nearsighted, right, you said you were wearing your contacts, you are usually corrected for like 20 feet, 6 meter distance vision, right? But now, let's say you're spending all day long at the computer, which is not 20 feet, but 2 feet away, you would need way lower diopters for that. And that's why, that's the kind of the danger with contacts, is that people that put them in and then they wear them all day long and not using the different, ideal strength that you need for that distance. So that's one thing. The oxygen, I honestly don't know that much about the oxygen supply. I think the benefit of contacts is that you have a bigger peripheral field, that you just, and everybody's peripheral vision is blurry. Like, we don't have clear vision in the periphery. We don't see colors at the outer edges. But with glasses, there's even more of a tendency to have that kind of a tunnel vision effect. So, I have very few clients that use contacts, but they need them for certain things or for appearances. And in that case, I say, whatever you do most of the day, let's say you're on your computer, let's say you're nearsighted and you're on your computer all day long, then I would wear contacts that are just for the computer distance, right? So you would use, and then for driving, you can always put an additional minus, diopter, whatever, as glasses on for driving. So that would be my advice, basically, for somebody who's nearsighted.
Great. Well, let's pivot now from, let's shift our vision, so to speak, or focus from root causes of worsening vision now to how to support wellness. What are some of the key components for healthy vision, and what can we do to support these areas? So if you don't mind, let's start with relaxation of the mind and eyes. These are some of the things, maybe some of the components you have in your program. How do we help relax the mind and the eyes, and how does that help our vision?
So yes, so I use two different approaches. I use what's called top down, which is really starting with the mind and then relaxing the body. And something we do is called palming. And palming is something that Dr. Bates was really big on. And it's basically resting your eyes. When you think about the rest of your mind or your body, you need rest. You can't just keep going. And we just use our eyes from the moment we wake up to the second we close them at night. And palming is just, you close your eyes and you can, you can rub your hands together, but you basically cover your closed eyes with cupped hands, and your fingers are crossing over the forehead so that you can breathe. The heels of the hands are resting on your kind of cheekbones. And then you want to support your elbows so that you can really relax, drop your shoulders. And then you want to bring your mind, now you don't want to like think about your shopping list or your to-do list. So bring your mind to a happy place. Somewhere where you're like, oh yeah, could be a real memory, a real place, a real person. Doesn't matter what it is, but something that's easy, effortless, and makes you just feel so good. And then you take a few deep breaths and you remind yourself, your eyes, I have nothing to see, I have nothing to do, I can completely relax. And you want to relax your jaw, get your eyes, like feel your eyes get heavy, relax your shoulders. That's why an elbow rest is really helpful here. And you can stay, this is something you can do for, I've done this for 30 minutes or longer, or you can just do it for a couple of deep breaths. And if you want to come out, you keep your eyes closed, slowly move your hands away, and you might notice how much light already comes into your eyelids. And then I always say, wait till you're ready, right? Wait till you're ready to kind of come back to planet Earth. And then you blink your eyes open, and I do 5 quick blinks, blink, 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 and 5 gentle squeezes. And your eyes should feel a little bit more lubricated and renewed and refreshed. So, and palming is both a rest for the eyes, and it's also a kind of a reset for your mind to kind of calm down, slow down, take that little pause. And then I don't know about you, do you feel a little bit more relaxed, or your eyes?
I feel much more relaxed. My shoulders feel like they've dropped. I have more lubrication. Yeah, just calmer overall.
Yeah, and that wasn't very long. I mean, we did it pretty short. And so that, and then another way I do this is, I don't have them here right now, but I'm also trained in the myofascial release technique. And so I'm using, because tension in the body, especially the shoulders, head, neck, and all the facial muscles do contribute to blurry vision. And most people, when they're in that stress mode all the time, they do something called chest breathing. So they're breathing up here, and that ends up creating a lot of tension in your chest and your upper back, your shoulders. So I use a lot of physical body work that people can do themselves instead of hiring an expensive massage therapist to kind of release that tension. So it's both, that's what I call the bottom up. It's like working with the body. And then so for most people, the body work is usually a little easier to initially understand. Oh yeah, I feel this, I can turn my head, it doesn't hurt. But and the palming is usually also a good way to kind of explore that,
Yes, I definitely felt a difference after just a few minutes of that. How often do you recommend people do palming during the day?
See, you're asking all the great questions. So I have some clients that say, tell me the exact protocol, like how many minutes often? And I always say, because I feel like this is your vision, this is your journey. You need to be curious about your own vision. And some people benefit more, especially if you have an eye disease, or if you have a lot of strain, better from in the morning. I always like a clear morning ritual, and then maybe in the evening, and maybe do like 5 to 10 minutes or even longer. And other people that feel like a lot of strain the whole day, maybe just do this like for a minute or two, 5 times a day. So you kind of have to see like what gives you the biggest results, because I tell you, if you can get the same result in 2 minutes that you could get in 10 minutes, then why do it for 10 minutes, right? So but everybody's different. I give you an example. When I did my teacher training and I first learned this, I was still working as a designer. And in the morning, it would take me like 3-4 minutes, and my eyes felt fresh and lubricated and ready for the day. And in the evening, because I didn't know how to use screens well, I was like staring, bad habits initially. It took me like 30 minutes for my eyes to feel the same relaxation that they felt in the morning after like 2 or 3 minutes. So yeah, but I found out by testing it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try this multiple times a day. I feel like, especially because I'm on screens a lot, and I know a lot of our listeners are as well. A lot of us have more sedentary jobs, or that we're on the computer, especially nowadays. A lot of people are teleworking and everything. They're in that same position. So their shoulders are going to get tense, their eyes are going to get a bit, tense, staring at that narrow tunnel vision, that screen, right? So, right. I wanted to kind of go to some cases, if you didn't mind, like maybe some success stories with clients, because I think people don't, until listening to this podcast probably, may not really even know that there's hope out there to correct their vision or, get it better in any way.
Yeah, I have so many. I'm trying to think ones. So, so I had a student who was nearsighted, and I think she was like a -2 or something. It wasn't like super high level, but it was enough to affect her life. She had worn glasses all her life since she was 7 years old, I think, or second grade or something like that. And that was probably 7 years old, yeah. And so she did my program. She was in her 60s when she did my program, and she wore progressive glasses at that point, and she hasn't been wearing glasses ever since she did the program. So she was able to first stop wearing glasses for any near vision tasks, and then eventually also for far vision, and she doesn't need them for driving anymore. And for driving, you need to get a clean driver's license, you need to pass the test. So that's an example. She's also very holistically oriented. We didn't talk about earlier, but sleep, good nutrition, all these things make a difference, especially when you get older. And then I had a student who was in her 70s, who started with readers, very typical, in her 40s, and was already in really strong progressive glasses as well. And her near vision was about +575, and her far vision was like about 275. So that was all in one pair of glasses with the progressives. And she's done my program, and she's also working with me in a smaller group coaching program. And we just had a session this morning, and she says, I'm using now 175s for reading. And if it's like really dim, maybe I go like 225s or something like that. So she dropped and she's in her 70s. So she dropped a lot, right? But she can do far vision now without glasses. And sometimes at night, she still puts some glasses on, but basically, and she's in really cheap readers now. She's not in like $800 progressive glasses anymore, but really like dollar store readers that you can,
Yeah.
Maybe one more, because maybe just in case you had LASIK, if some of you had LASIK. So LASIK doesn't last. It's a cut into your cornea. You can't reverse it. And I had a translator who had LASIK. She was I think she was 50 or in her early 50s. And her distance vision had declined, so she already needed them for driving. And her near vision had also declined. And as a translator, it made a difference because she couldn't see Microsoft Word documents reduced anymore. She had to blow them up, meaning she had to switch from one language, then the other. And after working with me, and she had insomnia, and she needed prescription eye drops, which is a common side effect of LASIK, is really dry eyes. So after working with me, doing the palming, doing the blinking, and some other strategies, she got rid of her insomnia. She's now sleeping 5 hours before it was 2 or 3 because of the relaxation. And she could see the documents at 70% side by side again. And that was despite having had LASIK done. So
great stories. I think that gives people hope. And there's real people that have had success, even like later in life, they don't have to be like teenagers or something,
Right.
But that's so great. Thank you so much, Claudia. Let's go back to the sleep and nutrition, because we're all about lifestyle here too in our clinic, and I think holistic community overall. How important are sleep and nutrition with healthy vision, and what are your general recommendations there?
Okay, so sleep, sleep is the foundation of everything. When you're sleep deprived, nothing works properly, including your eyesight. And just know, that's why I say notice how your vision varies. Like, how is it different if you didn't sleep much or if you are stressed? So sleep is super important. I think everybody varies a little bit. I do need my 8 hours. I don't have, it's on my charger now, but I have an Aura ring here usually.
I just got one too. Yep.
Oh, no, I have one. It's like, I wanted to show it, and then I realized I just almost showed my middle finger, but it was basically that the ring
right here. Yeah.
It's charging. There you go.
Yeah.
So I can kind of track my sleep and my how much rest do I get and overall. So sleep is super important. Hydration is super important, like lots of water here, clean filtered water. And nutrition, I am studying nutrition. I'm not a nutrition expert, and sometimes I bring in experts into my courses who teach certain lessons, but I started balancing my blood sugar about 4 years ago. That made a huge difference. In terms of I just have several people that get migraines. I used to get really bad migraines, and that affects your vision. And ever since I balanced my blood sugar, that's completely gone. I haven't had a migraine since 4 years since I started doing that. So I do talk about those things and I teach those things, but I'm not that's not the main focus, but I can advise people on that. And if they really need more guidance, I usually send them to a practitioner like yourself to help them sort those things out.
Great. Yeah, blood sugar is a great point, because we know that too little is bad, too much is bad for the system, cause inflammation, including probably of the nerves. That's why people with diabetes get diabetic neuropathy and things like that, and
that's the
retinopathy,
right? That's the leading cause of blindness is diabetes. And people don't think about the eyes, it's,
But I wonder, even up, they've done studies on this, that not even people with diabetes, but people with sort of blood sugar excursions, blood sugar fluctuations, they don't have frank diabetes, but are they getting some micro damage to those nerves over time?
That's what, eye doctors often find diseases, even Lyme disease or other diseases in the eyes first, and not just vision and eye diseases. Oftentimes the eyes are kind of the only part of the body where we can look inside without surgery. And so you can see the little capillaries, any kind of damage, any kind of inflammation, any blockages, you can see that in the eyes often before you can see it in a blood test or in a regular, whatever other test you do. So
yeah, that's great. Now, when I was little, people told me, don't look directly at the sun. It's like bad for you. It's going to cause eye problems. There's a concept that we'd love to learn about from you, called sunning. What is sunning your eyes, and why is sunlight so important for your eyes?
So sunning the way I teach it, and I teach different levels, but the basic, first of all, it's important to reduce your light sensitivity, because I was so light sensitive. I put my sunglasses on even on an overcast day. I have green eyes. And yes, there is definitely a correlation. If you have dark brown eyes, you're probably less light sensitive. But anybody, especially with nearsightedness and astigmatism, if you are light sensitive, your eyes are the organs of light perception. So if they cannot tolerate light, how can you see well, right? It makes total sense. So sunning is something where we begin, and we do it all with eyes closed in the beginning. And if you're very light sensitive, you start in the early morning sun or the late evening, and you have your eyes closed, and you just turn your head side to side facing the sun. And I know there's no sun right now if you're watching this, but basically the moment, like this eye would be in the shadow now. And so your pupils, your little pupils that you have, they're basically little mini built-in sunglasses, right? Pupils get really tiny and bright light, and they open up in the darkness. And so behind the closed eyelids, it's not a lot, but the pupils are kind of making little tiny adjustments in terms of the brightness level. And so you're training your pupillary reaction, you're reducing your light sensitivity. It's also a great way to stretch your neck, and we get vitamin D from the sun. So, and then eventually there's different layers where you then begin to open the eyes on the side, and eventually you can maybe blink and have them eyes open in the center. And I don't personally look, I do some sun gazing, but really only in the early morning and the late evening, sunset and sunrise, when I, do look into the sun directly. But I also do a lot of blinking. I don't do the staring where you don't blink. But I haven't worn sunglasses in 20 years. And I think that's something that I recommend to all my clients, assuming they don't have certain eye conditions. There's lots of disclaimers with the sunlight. I do want to make sure that you don't just throw them away, and you might have pupillary problems, or you might be on some kind of drug that inhibits your pupillary reaction. So then, and have your pupils wide open, then please wear sunglasses, or if you go skiing or any kind of extreme conditions. So, but yeah, generally speaking, for the normal daily life, if you have no of those conditions or other problems, then sunglasses are really no good.
Yeah, I agree. Even at the beach, I'll try to not wear sunglasses. I'll wear a cap or something if needed. But
that's what I do. Yeah.
Great. That's great to know. What about breathing, and why I think we touched on this before with the autonomic nervous system, but why is breath important for eye health, and what types of breathing do you recommend?
So, the brain needs, I think it's like 25% of all the oxygens, and the eyes need a lot of oxygen. And in fact, the cells, the retinal cells are the cells in the body that need more energy than every other cell in the body. So the retinal cells, that comes back to sunlight too. The little mitochondria, the little batteries in your cells, they kind of wear out a little bit when you're like in your 40s. I always talk about like a car battery. When you have an older car battery, it doesn't work as well. So they've done studies and found that infrared and near infrared light actually helps rejuvenate the mitochondria. So that's why natural light is also good. If you're younger than 40, 45, probably won't make that much of a difference. But coming back to the breath. So you do want, when you take those shallow breaths up here, you don't get enough oxygen into your brain. And it keeps you in that arousal, in that sympathetic state. Versus the belly breathing is what keeps, when you belly breathe, your system knows, hey, I'm safe, I can relax, there's nothing scary going on. So that's why it's really important to practice the belly breath. And I didn't know that until I studied yoga. Like my chiropractor told me, practice the belly breath. And I'm like, how? Like, I really didn't know how. And it's kind of like thinking of your belly, like inflating a little bit as you breathe. And obviously it's a diaphragm, right? You breathe into the lungs, they're in the rib cage, but your diaphragm, when you exhale, is kind of like a dome tent. And when you inhale, it goes down. And obviously, if you have tight abs, or you squeeze your abs, or you hold your abs tight, it can only go up here, right? Versus the organs, the belly should expand a little bit. And I think we have all kind of have these, oh my God, my belly looks fat or whatever. And I was taught to kind of suck my belly in, and that really limits your ability to breathe. So I teach a lot of breath practices to make a long story short.
Yeah, and my understanding is the bottom third of the lungs, you can get 50% more oxygen there. So it's really more breathing, more juice to the mitochondria, to the batteries, more juice to the retina. You can see better. Exactly. Like you said, the retinal cells are really consuming a lot of oxygen. I mean, it's something that we don't really, we think about, okay, we're going to get more oxygen for the bloodstream, it'll make our heart pump more or something, or we'll get more oxygen to our muscles so we can, perform better athletically or in sports or whatnot. But we don't, at least I haven't really thought about, eye health for oxygen too much. I mean, it's very intuitive, but what are your thoughts on red light therapy as you're in California, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a very sunny state. And some areas of the country or the world, maybe they're not getting as much sun all the time. What are your thoughts about things like red light therapy that have near infrared light to activate the mitochondria?
I like it. I mean, I'm not an expert in red light therapy by any means, but I actually have a little like one of those lamps, and I get up before the sun rises. So I actually do like 3 minutes of the red light in the morning, and I also turn my lights bright on so that I awaken. But yeah, I don't know that much about like saunas but it's definitely been proven in several studies now out of the UK that the infrared light, that it studies in mice and then men, mice and men, and obviously women. I think it was actually just men in this case. I don't know.
There needs to be more studies on women across the board. Yeah. That's a big issue with medical,
but basically my point was that, this has been helping. It's been proven to be successful, helpful.
Great. Any other comments about, what are the most important things to, support healthy vision that we didn't cover so far?
I think like what's really important, like shifting your focus. And also this is a big piece of the Bates method, is what he called central fixation. The understanding that wherever you look, assuming you have a healthy eye, is where you see best. And you have this big peripheral field, but a tendency, if you have poor vision, is to kind of, let's say, try to see the whole screen at once, when in reality, I can even if I look at your right eye, I cannot see the left eye as good, or the rest of you, So basically, the quicker your eye movements are, the little saccadic eye movements, the more you shift your focus, the more clarity you have, because, it's like thinking of little snapshots that your eyes make, versus, again, we have the panorama picture from the peripheral field, but we don't have clear vision in the periphery. And so that's a big piece that people have to often learn again, is that somebody with good vision automatically, they'll be like, of course, when I look at that point, I see that better than the point dot next to that, and it's even could be like 1 millimeter apart and you still see it better, because the fovea where we have the best vision is very, very small. And it takes in 50% of the feed from the 50% of your visual information comes to that little tiny dot. And that's why mental focus is also connected to visual focus, because you're literally scatterbrained if you try to see all these things clear at once, which is anatomically impossible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really great. Centralization, correct?
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you so much, Claudia. Well, thank you for all these tips. And I know a lot of listeners are going to want to sign up for your program. Let's talk first about some fun questions, if you don't mind, some questions we ask all our guests. First of all, do you have a morning routine? And if you don't mind sharing that.
Yeah, I do have a morning routine, and I call it my clear morning ritual. And it starts with stretching and yawning, like really like, yawning actually stretches your masseter, that's one thing I do. And then I also say positive things to myself. I love myself, or I love you, and it's a great day. So like really start your day with like positive mindset and excitement and joy. And I can't give the whole thing away because it's part of my program, but I have a few little vision routines that I do. And then I meditate, and I do some palming. I have a little device that a colleague of mine makes. They're called palming sticks. It's basically a rest for your elbows. So I'm palming while I'm meditating, and I do the infrared light before. So I do the little bit of infrared light. Again, if it was sunny already, if I would get up later, I would just go outside. But yeah, so those are the things. And I do a little bit of my roll and relax, my little like massage of my, I kind of check in my usual trigger points. And if those are all good, then I just look, maybe I roll up my feet or I do something else like that.
So we brush our teeth every day in the morning. We should probably also care for our eyes in the morning. It sounds like that program is really comprehensive, and looking forward to learning more. What book or podcast are you enjoying the most right now? And what is it about, and why do you enjoy that?
Ooh, that's a hard question. Like I said earlier, I love Dr. Andrew Huberman's podcast. It's the episodes are really long and it's a lot of information, and I usually listen at the beach. But it's like, I love that he's a professor of ophthalmology and neuroscience, and that a lot of the things, he had a whole episode on vision, and everything I'm teaching, he was like, yeah, you should do this. I'm like, oh my God, that's exciting. So I like that. I'm a kind of a science geek. I really like listening to that. And I also like Darren O'Lean's, he has a podcast, and every other episode is called Fatal Conveniences. And he talks about sunglasses. He talks about like, Ziploc bags or I don't know, like scented candles, but all these things that we have kind of taken as part of our modern life that are toxic and can actually cause us harm. So that one is like, because he always has a solution too. It's like, not just, okay, this is bad, but here's the solution. So that's
that's great. Yeah, I want to check both of those out. Thank you. And I think you're a very amazing person, joyful person. What do you do every day to cultivate joy?
To do what?
To cultivate joy. You are. I can tell from your eyes you're a very joyous person. So.
Well, it's definitely not always easy, but I remind myself of, first of all, I love what I do. I'm lucky. I used to work in design and advertising, and in my 20s, I loved that job too. And then I didn't like it so much anymore. And I love what I do, so that already makes me happy. And I go outside a lot. I like my garden. I grow some veggies. It's been a little bit, not as much as I would like to do to my being so busy, but I love going out there and planting stuff and then seeing it grow, and just being outside is my favorite thing.
Yeah, connecting with nature. Totally agree. And thank you so much again, Claudia, for coming on today. We really appreciate you coming on. I know a lot of listeners are going to find a lot of value in this. How can people learn more about you and work with you and your vision program?
So you can go to my website, myholisticvision.com. To be honest, I haven't put all my programs on there. In fact, there's no program on there at this point, but you can download a free gift called 10 Habits to Healthy, Happy Eyes that gives you some basics. I talk about sunning and palming. So that's a way to get started. And if you want to actually build your own clear morning ritual and do that, I have a program called 21 Days to Better Eyesight Experience. And I know this is an evergreen podcast, but we're running this pretty much every month. So March 7th is the next group. It's starting. And then I have other programs too. But basically you can reach out to me on my website. There's an email. All my Instagram is, I'm working a lot more on my Instagram, which is really fun. That's another thing I actually enjoy, Instagram.
Nice.
So Holistic Vision Coach is my Instagram handle, Holistic Vision Coach.
Holistic Vision Coach. Got it, for Instagram. That's great. I have to check that out. So if people want to work with you, they could contact you via that email on the website.
Yeah, they can do that. I also have a YouTube channel. I go live every Wednesday called Clear Vision Wednesday. So they can join. That's free. They can join my Clear Vision Wednesday. Follow me on YouTube. But that's basically how you can work with me. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Great. Well, here's to healthy vision, clear vision for all. Thank you so much, Claudia, for coming on today. And we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to leave us a review. It helps our podcast to reach more listeners. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next episodes and conversations. And thank you so much again for being with us.